Hello everyone, this is Srivastava from Hackslash, and today we are going to study about React. This is our fourth session in the web series. So right now, let us start. I believe from the prior knowledge of previous sessions, you are pretty much familiar with HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And yes, this is provided by our team called 405 Found. So this is the web domain team of Hackslash. So please hit the like button because we are really putting a lot of effort into making these study jams. So the topic is Hello to React. So we will be going deeper into the React and we will explore some parts of Node.js as well, like what is Node and Node.js and all that. But our main focus would be on React. So without wasting any time, let us move on to the topic, that is what is React. So what is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So what is a user interface? Well, whenever you go onto any website, what you see? You just see the front page. Okay. You don't know what is going on behind the system. You only see the front page. This front page is known as user interface or also as front end. Okay. Front end. It is also known as front end. So, okay, let me explain you a bit more. Whenever we have any software or let me draw something for you rather. Okay. Let us say we have a system. So any system is like divided into two parts. First one is the front end and the second one is the back end part. Okay. So both of these are very crucial and critical for any system. Backend has its own component, front end has its own components. What happens actually is that React deals with the front end portion of any application, specifically web application. It is developed and maintained by Meta, which is previously known as Facebook, and it uses component based architecture for modular development. What this means? Actually, React, everything in React, like every UI component, like every UI in React is divided into its components. So you just need to deal with a particular component if you want to do anything with the UI or you want to change anything into the UI. It creates a virtual DOM to optimize rendering and improve performance. Declarative UI creation, making code easier to understand. One-way data binding, and also single page application. Like this is the best this is the one of the best interface for creating, or you can say library for creating the single page applications, because it is very fast and interactive. Now what does this declarative UI creation mean? I will explain them in the code. So also it has very large community support. So why you need a community support? First of all, because whenever you are going to make any project, you will be facing some difficulties. To overcome these difficulties, you require a community so that you can discuss it and you can get some idea of why you are facing that issue. Okay, now what happens is in React, let me once again draw this. Let us say you have some web page which is completely HTML based. So from previous lecture, okay, so from previous lecture, you have studied about JavaScript. Okay, so how you are going to change anything into it? Simply by adding a JavaScript code. Okay, so this is our JavaScript. If you want to change anything, you uses DOM. Okay, DOM uses document manipulation to change anything inside this HTML. Okay, so now you know that whenever you must have used DOM, you have understood that using DOM is quite a complex task, because you first of all have to go pick a particular element, then you have to see what thing you have to change, then you have to pick up by class or by ID or by some tag. After that you have to put like write inner HTML, outer HTML, text and all different things, which becomes pretty much complex. So what actually React does is that it is a library. So we are putting it over our JavaScript. Like it is, the base language is JavaScript, and over it we have our React. Over this we have React. So the code that we used to write into JavaScript is now written in the form of React within our React environment. So with this, React actually converts everything into the JavaScript and then uses to manipulate your HTML document. Now, second, let me show you. So what previously was happening is that let us say this is your JavaScript, Java, and this is your HTML document. HTML. Okay, this is your HTML document. So previously, whenever you want to do something, change something into the HTML, you were writing directly into JavaScript, which is like browser JavaScript, and then running it with executing it into the HTML file. Now what happens is we don't write the basics. We write in a React form, okay, in a React environment using a React library. Like say we have, let us say we have React over here. So we will be writing codes. Okay, so our code will be directly written into React. And this React is obviously it is written in JavaScript. React is also like a JavaScript itself, but this makes it makes it very easy for us to understand what is happening. Selecting and changing anything in HTML becomes very easy with React. What is virtual DOM? As I said, that React acts in between. React acts in between the, like, it is a top layer, it is a upper layer over JavaScript. This makes it a virtual DOM. It creates a virtual DOM, then efficiently updates the UI. Also, it is component based. By being component based, it allows us to reuse our code structures. For example, you want to create a navigation bar. Okay, navigation bar. So once you have created it, you can reuse it in React. You can reuse it very easily. You just need to import the nav component and use it wherever you want to. Okay, I will show you how to import and everything in the code section. Let us first complete the theory section. Okay, so it is a declarative UI. What does declarative mean? That everything is declared. Okay, like it's like obviously declarative means declared. It means that everything is defined properly. It has states. You can manage the states. You can manage what things it renders. You can manage every aspect of it within the component of itself. Okay, so okay, now unidirectional data. So unidirectional data flow means let us say you have one component C1. This is the parent component. This is the topmost component you have. It has two different components, C2 and C3. What unidirection means? Unidirection means in one way. So let us say we have some data on C1. Then we can pass this data to C2 as well as C3. Okay, but we cannot take the data from C2. Let us say we had some data to C2 into the C1 component. Why? Because C2 is above C1. Oh, sorry, C2 is below C1. Okay, now rich ecosystem. As I said, that it has many extensions, many support available, many new extension libraries are available for React itself. It is cross-platform. If you have heard about React Native, it uses similar syntax and similar concepts of React and merges itself with the mobile development applications. It also helps us in server-side rendering. Now, let us do Node.js installation part. So what is Node.js? I will explain it while I'm downloading it because it takes a bit of time. First of all, simply you have to type onto your browser Node.js. You will get the first link. Okay, right there. Hit this one. This should work. Okay. Yep, it will work. Okay. So what is Node? Node actually provides us our environment to run JavaScript outside our browser. In simple terms, it is like whenever you are installing C++ or Python, you have to download a compiler or interpreter. So Node.js is kind of similar to it. It helps you to run JavaScript outside your browser, because JavaScript is also running on into the browser, but now you can run it wherever you wish to. Now, okay, let me tell you one like how to install it. Okay, a pretty simple installation is very straightforward. Click on next. I agree to the agreements, and next. Make sure that all of these options are selected. None of like you don't need to miss out anything. Otherwise, you might face some issues. Not right now, but obviously when you do more development, you might face some issues. So make sure all of them are checked. Currently, I'm canceling it, but it is pretty straightforward because I already have Node installed. And also you can you can learn more about Node into its documentations. You just need to read it. But overall, it is just a kind of compiler kind of thing. Okay, you can answer it like that. Now let us create our project folder. Open this folder into your VS Code. Okay. So now open your integrated terminal. In order to install, like we are installing the React. So there are two ways. First one is to use the basic React, which is available from the React library itself, or you can use a wrapper around it. So I'm using a wrapper known as Vite. Yeah, and yeah, to verify your whether npm and node is installed, type npm -- version and node -- version. You should see the version of node that is installed on your PC after the installation is done. Okay, now to install, pretty simple. Npm create Vite at latest my app. Okay, let me go to the terminal. All right, just type npm create Vite at latest and hit enter. Okay, you can provide the name of your file, right, like name of your project, or you can provide it later. As you will be asked that what is the name of your project. Let us say my app. Now you can select different whatever tech stack you want to use. Since we are using React, you can simply use React. Now there are different options. I am choosing JavaScript for simplicity, but it is very Vite is a very nice wrapper. It provides you like many extensions and plugins that are very useful for development purposes. Alright, as you click enter, you will see that some folder structure has been appeared. Now you have to go and cd into that folder and hit npm install. Npm install. Why npm install? Let's go to package.json. So inside this package.json, you will see that we have dependencies. What are dependencies? They are the libraries that our application needs to run. Okay, so you can see the version of these libraries right there. Okay. So the installation part is done. Now you will see this node modules folder. This contains all the libraries that we require to run the React or any other application. Whenever you will install any libraries, it will just go inside this node modules. Inside the source, okay, now if you want to like verify if your installation is done on properly or not, you have to run npm run dev. What is there? Okay, it will show you a link. So as you see, what npm run dev actually does is that it is a script. Okay, as you see, inside the package.json, it is a script that runs wait. Now, if you go to the browser, you will see that this is our React app. You can see, click on the counter. There are no errors inside this console. You must see, or you must always check if everything is done while installing from a wrapper or anywhere. If you click on a React logo, you will be taken directly to the React's documentation where you can learn more about React, what is like every other function of React, hooks and all that. We will be covering hooks in the later part of the video. First, let us look for normal thing. And if you click on Vite logo, you will see the Vite's website open. You can learn more about Vite as well if you wish to. But currently we don't need these boiler plate, so we can like remove them. Inside this app.css, we don't need it. And also I can remove it from here, app.jsx. Okay, you can remove all those boilerplate imports and everything. And you can clear this code as well. Okay. You can delete this assets file as well because you don't need it. Okay, so now the project is clean. All right. So you can see that we have created in index.html a div known as root. And in mint.jsx, actually you can remove these imports for now as well, but there is no need. But inside this mint.jsx, you see create root. Okay, so what does this do? Let us read. You can just like it actually creates. You can see it is selecting the document element. You must have done it when you were doing the DOM manipulations in the JavaScript, because this is how we select any particular division or any particular element in your HTML. So you can see the installation is done. JSX is something that I will teach you right now. Yeah, and it is. So in this HTML file, you can see there is body. Inside body is a div known as root with the ID root. In main.jsx, we are doing get element by root, document.get element by root, in order to select that particular division. And if you like read, it is written create root lets you create a root to display a React component inside a browser DOM node. This is the first step to create the component. After this, we will be creating further component, but this is the base component that will be created inside this div element. Okay, inside this div element. Okay, now this is strict mode. This is actually for development purpose only, because it highlights whatever error you are facing. So we are just using strict mode. If you are in a production server, you can obviously remove these code love lines. Now the app.jsx function. What our JSX does is that it takes function with some name. You all know how to declare a function in JavaScript, and then it exports it. How export done? It is like you can use CommonJS or different exporting methods. You just need to write export default for now. And let me add some code like hello React. Okay, so hello React is added, and you will see that in this browser you are able to see the hello React. I have just added one h1 tag. This function is exported, and this function returns an HTML component. Okay, one HTML component is returned by the function. Let me create one more component to tell you how import works. Let us name it by maybe, or by component dot JSX. Okay, all right. Once again, function by component must be caps. Okay, the first letter must be capital. parameter parenthesis diff by. Also, since you are like it may be big, that's why you use parenthesis after return, not necessary. Then you use like empty tag, and now h1 for bye bye, and we simply export this function. All right, now inside this amp.jsx we are going to import it. And now with the arrow brackets, we like this, we can display it. So what happened? Like, okay, so what actually happened? Let us see and analyze it. All right. So here, what is actually happening is that we are importing the function that we just exported from by component. Okay, from the by component. Using these, okay, like JS is your syntax that allows writing HTML code. As I said, that particular function was exporting one HTML component. We can import any number of HTML component inside one component. Like this, I am importing by component from the by.jsx file. Okay, you can see this is okay. So this is how import is done in a React. Okay, inside React and inside JSX. What JSX actually is, like you must have heard like .js. Okay, but in React we use .jsx. Okay, so with curly braces you can add JavaScript, plain JavaScript. Okay, let me demonstrate it as well. Okay, let us say we have some constant. Let us declare a variable constant name equals to, you can name it whatever, it's just a string. Satyarth, let's say Satyarth it is. Okay, all right. Now within this HTML component, like within this HTML, we are including the JavaScript. How? With the help of this curly braces. If I write name here, and what should be happening? Let us guess. Okay, so now my name is available, but see, in this HTML component, I have not included my string. Okay, the name of my string Satyarth I have not included, but it was declared as a JavaScript variable, and now we can use this variable within the HTML itself. This opens the gate to using different states, like we can state management, variable management, and interactive websites with the help of this function, like this feature. Okay, so how there are two ways to create a component. Okay, inside component is an independent unit. Okay, it is independent. You can create any component. They do not interfere with each other until or unless you supply some data to them from, like as I said, from parent to child. Okay, they can be imported and exported. There are two ways to create component inside React. The first one is functional based component that I have just shown you. Other one is the class based component. So class based components are not that much used nowadays. Only functional components are mostly used, and it is the most modern way of implementing React, because the class component was previous when the object oriented programming was on its peak. That's why it was introduced, but not used currently. So now you can see that this is the okay. So now how we are going to pass data? We are going to pass data with the help of props. What are props? Props, you can say it tells that there would be some data coming from the parent. Now if in the body in the by component, if I add props, and okay, this name is already here, and if I go there and add some strings like JavaScript and do props dot name, you will see some the magic as well. All right. Okay, so you can see that the data that I'm passing, name equals to curly braces, then issue. So I am passing this name and I am receiving it in a child component. Remember, app has name issue, but React, with the help of React, I am receiving it as a prop. Okay, as a data from parent to the child. All right. So now let us move to the next topic. And before moving to that topic, let us take a quick look onto styling. So styling in React is mostly done with Tailwind. Obviously, you can use many other libraries for styling, but Tailwind is the most useful and like most used, widely used technology library for designing your application. Okay, so what is Tailwind CSS? Tailwind CSS is a utility first CSS framework for rapidly building custom designs. What this means is that from like if you know that like previously with CSS it's very like if you increase the complexity of the project it becomes very difficult to like maintain all the classes and all that and you all have to write it with scratch. But Tailwind is very fast. Okay. Tailwind is very fast and it provides you with some predefined classes for layout, spacing, color, and every styling things. And it allows inline styling directly into your JSX, making component highly customizable. You can easily customize your React because now we have everything in component. Okay, they are not in one single file; they are in different components, and it becomes very difficult to maintain like similarity, like to maintain the similarity between all the components, to maintain quick customization becomes very hectic with these with this component system. So that is why Tailwind CSS helps us to easily do that thing with inline styling. You don't need to worry about CSS files because they are backed by Tailwind CSS's library. And it is very useful in making responsive UIs. Okay, so installing Tailwind. Yeah, and I will be installing like providing code snippets right in this PPT side. That file is empty right now. Okay, so let's go to your browser and type Tailwind CSS and wait. Hit enter. First link is the way to go. Okay, yeah, all these code snippets I will be providing within this slide. Okay, so now let us install the Tailwind CSS. Okay, okay, I have closed this terminal. Okay, copy this code. Tailwind is really very powerful, very powerful library, and you will love to use it. Okay, so installation is done, and it is lightweight as well. Okay, now go to this file known as beatconfig.js. Over here, hit the import. Okay, and this thing inside the plugin because we are using Tailwind is a plugin. Like if you are going to use React router, any other thing, you will be using the plugin function to plug in the component into the Beats development environment. Okay, now you no longer need it. You just need to hit at import Tailwind CSS in this index.css and that's all. Now your Tailwind is already ready to use. Okay, if I go to the website, so you see there is no color, it's empty. Why? Because I have not added any Tailwind CSS. For adding Tailwind CSS, let me make this our div. Okay, so class name. Okay, in React, you are providing with class name as like in HTML you used to write class. In React you will be writing class name. Let us give some defaults. Okay, this is not working. I guess it should be working. Some background, I am providing gray background. Okay, so it is actually working. It was very light because I have selected gray background 100. If I do it black, then it would be fine. Like it would be more clearly visible to you guys. Okay, let us do some suggestions. Going with the suggestions right there. Okay, so you see with the with inline styling, now I'm able to create a kind of nav bar kind of thing. There are all, and if I go to this was for app. If I go to our by component, where was it? 1 second. You can obviously change many things inside there. Okay, let me make it rounded. Okay, you can see that with some small inline codes, I am able to create such a nice looking header for my website. So this is the reason why it is very useful, because you can do inline styling with most efficient and most uniform approach ever. Again, in the by component, let us do class name equals to text center, not center, but let us give it a color like rose 500. It is kind of like red. Okay, you can see it's not very contrasting, but yeah, it is working. So this is how Tailwind works, and I hope you guys definitely enjoyed this session. And there is, okay, you can also do in any component, like here, just provide the class name and increase the text size to 4XL. So this is for it, guys, and I'm okay, so after this, now we are going till now we are studying about the static part, and from now we are going to move on to the dynamic and state management thing and different hooks. And I am done here, and really thank you guys. Thank you from my side, and over to Nikita, and she will be telling you about the hooks and how dynamically you can change the components. So thank you and bye.
Hello everyone, so we are moving forward with React Router. Myself Nikita Pant, and we are going to study ahead of whatever you have seen till now. So I hope that you have got a good idea about how to install React, what React is, the components in React. So now moving on, let's talk about some other aspects of React. So one of the very important part of React being React Router, state management, etc. We'll get to know about it in the coming slides. Okay, so what is React Router? Okay, and actually how is it helping us? How is it helping React to do all of the things that it is allowing the users to do? So React Router is JavaScript library. It helps developers to create single page applications. This is a very important word. What a single page application mean is that you can move between different pages or views without needing to refresh the whole page. The whole idea behind is based upon routing, URL based routing. And that is what React Router or React Router helps us to do. It allows us to navigate between pages without reloading the page or without refreshing the page. Okay. So now what does it do? It helps client side routing. For example, let's try to understand all of these complex things by a simple example. For example, you have an e-commerce website. Okay, so you have the basic home page in it. You have the description of different items which may be present, which are available in your e-commerce, and then you might have a cart option. So these are all the things which a web page might be comprising of. So when you click on say my cart, you are not redirected to some new page or some new server based application, but you are taken to a different UI in the same web page. In the same thing, you are navigated to a different route. You are given a different UI based upon this cart option that you get, that you click, but you don't have to refresh the whole page. A new page is not getting refreshed. So that is what React Router helps us to do. For example, if I click on any item or article, I am taken to that article, the description about the article, the customer reviews about the article, but not something which I get on a different web page. But I am just doing all this thing in a single web page application. So that is what React Router helps us, and that is something which is the modern requirement from any web application. Okay, so this is what React Router helps us to do. It helps to make complex web page applications, and it helps us to organize efficiently the navigation within React applications. Just like as I said, you can navigate to different parts of a web application by forming URL based routing. Routing, dynamic routing are all the things that are provided by React Router. And how do we do so? How do we get to do so? We get to do so using React Router packages. One of the famous being the React Router. It helps to get the core functionality of React Router. React Router DOM. It helps us to add a few DOM specific APIs. I hope that you are aware what DOM is. Okay. DOM, document object model. In the same way, React also helps us to create DOM like applications by React Router DOMs. Okay, now moving on. Okay, so let's get to the next slide. React hooks. Now, what does React hooks mean? Okay, that is also a very important part of React. As I said, what a single page application is. How can we get dynamic routing, URL based routing? How can we make our navigation among a web page so seamless? That is all what React helps us to do. Now, how do we do so? We do so with the help of different features provided by React, which include React hooks. Okay, so as you have known what components are, in components we know that they give you JSX kind of some code in return. It is basically HTML code, but it is returned as a function, so we call it a JSX code. Or basically you are getting some components that provide you the JSX or HTML. Okay, some UI or some sort of those things. Okay, so I hope you are well aware of what components are. Now, so what does React hooks do? Whenever you want to do some function in your web application, you might be making components. You might be requiring to return a JSX code for it, but you can use React features that help you to get some functionalities being added into your React application without writing class components. You don't have to define components in all of the web pages that you are building. Okay, so here you can use different types of hooks provided by React, including state hooks, effect hooks, context hooks. I will just give you a brief introduction about them, and then we'll dive into some code so that we can understand how these things are actually happening. Okay. So what does state hook do? State hooks, they include use state and some other hooks like that. Use state is, again, as I said, can be used as a component, and that will provide you functionalities to manage the local state. Now, what do I mean from state for web application? I think we can get into this after a little while, after I explain you and give you some examples of some basic web applications. So moving on, we have effect hooks. Effect hooks is something which helps you to fetch data, give you some side effects, DOM manipulation, etc. of your web application. So let's get a deep dive into these two things. Okay. So to understand about the state and about use effect hook, context hook, we need to first of all get ourselves deep into a simple application so that we can understand these things on a basic level. Okay. So before that, let's talk about what state management actually means. State management in React, it is the process of managing an application's data so that it can change over time and affect the app's behavior and appearance. I think these words are self-explanatory, but let's try to understand what it actually means. So for example, you have a application, okay, and you have a button over here, and what does this button do is if you click on this button, it will change into light mode or dark mode. Okay, so if I click on this button, it gets changed into light mode. If I click on this button, it gets changed into dark mode. So the state of the application, the appearance of the application, or the behavior of application at some point, its different elements inside your UI would look a little different, and when you click on this, it might get into dark background, some light colored elements in front of it. So this is how we can understand what a state, as a simple example, what a state of a web application can mean. Okay, so that is what state is. You will get to know a lot of things about state. It can also refer to different variables which you might have defined inside your web application. For example, you have a e-commerce web application again, and you have a cart over here, or bag, this button over here. So when you add more items to it, for example, I had 3 items initially. If I add one more item, I will get 4 items over here. So this is what the state of the application has been changed. This is a very small change which you're making, but this is how you can a little bit understand about what state actually means. Like, okay, so what is the state in React? This is, state is a data. It is a data that determines a component's behavior and rendering. We'll get to know about it, okay? And it updates dynamically when user interaction or events occur. For example, say you have a basic application, for example, you have WhatsApp or some chat application. So as users, or you add the people in your context, as you allow them, or as you start talking with them, they get into your chat list. Okay, so this is how the state has been changed. One of the user or one of the contexts has been added to your UI. So this is how the state has been changed, and that all happens dynamically. Whenever a change, or whenever there is some change or some updation in your UI, that becomes dynamic, and that is stored according to the React hooks and different things which will come into play. Okay, now it helps share state between components efficiently. This has been changed, a new user, a new contact has been added. So the person's status, for example, will be shown in the status bar as well. So this is different components, different parts of your web application can also see the difference in the state. Okay, it improves performance and maintainability. Regardless, to say that it is extremely important to improve your performance. Okay, now there are different tools for us. Use state is a tool, context API is a tool, and here is one word, prop drilling. As we had seen in the last slide also, we talked about what context hooks. So what do context hooks? They help us to provide the same data or updation in which might be present in one of the components in your web application, to be provided to different parts of it, to provide the data across the component tree. That is what context hooks do. Okay, so now let's try to make things less complicated. I know that it might sound overwhelming at first. Let's try to look at an example. So here I have a simple application in which we are going to have a very simple UI, very simple this whole interface, just to understand what state is, what use state it does to our web application or the UI. So I hope that you know how does a React project looks like. So this is the React project. Okay, here you have first of all the entry point to your server will be index.html. There are some packages that are made over here, and in that you have a source file. Source file has all of the data, all of the components, all of the JSX files, etc., from which your whole application will be coming to life. Okay, so the very first checkpoint is going to be index.html, and it is titled count application. Let's try to run this thing. We will open an integrated terminal and npm run dev. Okay, and we are given a host, localhost, a route, and this is our basic application. All right, so in index.html, as you go in the index.html, this is our HTML code. We have one element over here which is a div whose ID is root. Okay, the ID is root. Now then the script part gives us the source code which has main.jsx. So where will be routed to? We will be routed to main.jsx. Here we are importing React from React. This is a package, and we are importing React from there. React DOM, as I said, React DOM, that is a package which provides us React DOM. This is being imported from there, or this is how we are going to use that part of the package. Okay, now we will import app from app.jsx. Now this is app.jsx is a component which has been defined in this source folder of my React project. And the React DOM, what will React DOM? It will create root. Okay, just like we were using query selector etc. in our JavaScript, in the similar manner we create a root, and which is going to access the element root from our index.html. Okay, and then we are going to render app over here. I hope you know what rendering means. Rendering means that we are rendering a component. We are rendering the JSX part which is provided to us as return from one of the components. So we are directed to app.jsx. Okay, so we will go to app.jsx. Okay, in app.jsx, what do we have? So it has a counter parent which is being imported from another folder which is components, and components as counter parent as one of the components inside it. And here what we are going to have is app. This is our what? This is our function, or rather I should say it is our component which is going to return us this JSX part. This is counter parent. Okay, so we will go to counter parent. We will not go. This is how the routing is actually happening. This is how the navigation is actually happening for this web application. So here also we have imported a counter component from this file. Okay, so we have this whole thing. Let's go to counter first. Okay, now here is, okay, so by this basic simple project we'll be able to know, we have till now we have understood how the project looks like. This is how React projects look like. This is how you make different folders and files inside of it, and this is how the things are routed or navigated inside a React project. Okay. Okay, so what are we importing over here? We are importing React, we are imposing use state, use effect, the very important hooks provided by React, and they are being imported from what? React package. Okay, so here I have defined the component counter, and it has some props which are given as argument inside of it. Now here you should see use state. Okay, now let's get into it, what use state means. So how it works is you have basically an array. We have defined an array over here, a const variable kind of array, which has value and set value inside of it. Value is basically an integer, whereas set value is a callback. I hope you know what callback is. Callback is basically a function, okay, that is being used here. So we have this whole thing. This is basically the syntax of use state. You have an array in which you have like a const value over here, and you have set value as the callback, and the props dot initial. In the props, in this part, whatever prop you give will be the initially whatever prop you will give will be the value being assigned to this variable value. Whatever you give over here is the initial thing what value is going to get. Okay, and set value is going to update it. Now how will it update, where will it update? So set value. See, there is, I have made a function handle increment and handle decrement. So whenever here you see this is your JSX part. So what is this counter thing going to return us? It is going to return us a div. In the div you will get a value, you will have buttons. The button when clicked, two buttons for example, see here, this is the application. You have two buttons, plus and minus. See, plus and minus button, and when you click them, this handle increment and handle decrement functions will be called. Okay, what does handle increment doing? Handle increment is calling the set value function, and what will set value function do? It will increase this value. This will increase this value by 1. Okay, similarly the set value callback function, this function is what is going to do? Value, it will change it into -1. Okay, matlab decrease it to -1. Okay, so I hope that this part is clear. Use state, what it does, it is a hook in which the whatever we give as the value variable will be the initial value being provided to this variable. Whatever initial that we give over here will be provided to value, and set value, it just changes or updates the value of this variable. Okay, set value is basically changing the value of this variable. We don't have to define what value means. It knows that this is what the value means. Where I'm not defining anything new. It knows that value is this variable. Okay, so this is what's happening. Let's see. Okay, so this is what our counter is returning us. Let's see what counter parent does. Counter parent is just to initialize the counter component with one with initial value 0. The initial value of the variable value is going to be 0 via this, will be 1 via this, will be 3 via this. Just like here, the initial value of value variable will be 0 over here, 1 over here, 3 over here. When I click on this, it will increase it to 1. When I will do this, it will call the what was the name? The name was handle decrement function, and it is going to decrease it. Handle increment function will be called, it is going to increase it. Handle decrement function will be called, it is going to be decreasing the value. Okay, so state is basically initially, as you see, initially this is the state of my web application. This is a very simple web page. This is the initial state of it. Initially the value is 0. Initially the value over here is 1. Initially the value over here is 3. Now the state is changed, and this is very much visible in this application, and I don't need to reload this thing to see the changes. I'm just reloading it to get the fresh application, fresh use of it without any updation. So when I do plus, there is no refresh which is required. I'm not even being routed to a different server to see all the changes. Everything is happening in the single page. That is what React helps us to do, and that is what use state has helped us to do. It has helped us to give a variable. It has this variable. It has helped us to give a function which can render the values, render the state of this variable, and update it. Okay, now another thing, let's restart it. Okay, everything is 0. This is what we are getting. A value has been updated to 0, 1 and 3. How is it this thing is coming on the console? Here I have used use effect. Use effect is a very important another React hook. Okay, now the syntax to it is, first of all, in this bracket you see the purple bracket, this bracket over here. This is going to help. This is the syntax of use effect, and here you give a function. Till here I have defined a function, and in these curly braces, blue curly braces, a function has been defined. What is the function? Function is to log, console.log, just to print on the console that the value has been updated to value. What is this value? I don't have to define it again. I have defined it using use state over here. Value is this variable, and this variable these many times. Okay, so whenever this thing changes, this thing is going to be updated. Whenever the value gets changed, this statement is going to be changed on the console. Let's see how. So whenever I change this +1 to, for example, 2, so you see there is a change. If I subtract it, there is a change. So this is what use effect helps us to do. This is a very basic example I have taken just to tell you how use state and use effect are used. I hope you know what use state does. It helps us to change the state of different elements or components inside our web application. What does use effect do? Use effect helps us to bring side effects. Now what I mean from side effects, side effects are all the changes which are done in a web application that are outside the web application. For example, I'm doing console.log. For example, you might be fetching an API data. If I click on a button, it will fetch a data. So that is a side effect being done. So these things can be possible using use effect hooks. And yeah, I hope you can move forward. Now let's talk about another very important aspect of React.js or any web application in general, which is our API integration. Okay, so what does API do? I hope that you might be knowing a little about what APIs are. APIs basically are the kind of servers which provide you data in a particular format. That is what your API is basically. Okay. API, application programming interface. So this is a common and crucial tasks in modern web application. Fetching data from API helps in getting real-time updates dynamically and efficiently. So we know that what it means. Whenever you are, for example, in any web application, you want some information about. For example, a very easy example of it is, say, we have. Just a second. For example, we have Wikipedia. In Wikipedia, what happens is there are so many texts which have been underlined, which look blue in color. When you click on the text, you are directed to a different folder, right? And there you get some information about it from there. Or example, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about something else. For example, as simple as a weather application. When you search a city, in your UI, you get all the information about the city, about the city's temperature, about its humidity, about its wind movement, etc. How do we get these all things when I have never defined all of them in my web application? In this web page, in this web application, I never defined for a city. Say example, I have Lucknow. I didn't define its time, I didn't define its temperature, its all of the information related to the city. But how am I getting this data? That data I get from API. APIs help me to fetch data from an external part which provides me a server, as in the form of a data in a particular format. It can be in JSON format or JSX format, things of that sort. Let's not complicate it. So that is what APIs help us to do. They help us to fetch data. Okay. And that too in real time updates dynamically and efficiently. All right. Now, how do we fetch data from API in React? We can do it via two methods, which is one by JavaScript and one by Axios. In one example, which I'm going to show you in a very small while, we will be using via JavaScript fetch. How do we do so? We use JavaScript fetch method. Okay, I hope you might be a little aware about fetch method. If not, we will get to know about it. We'll see what fetch method does, how it is used, and it helps us to, it provides us, what do we do from that? We send a HTTP request. Okay, we send a HTTP request, and from there we get the data in the form of a promise, and with, as it is a async function, with time we get the data. Okay. So let's look at a very small another application, a web application, so that we can understand this thing in a little more detail. So this is another React project under React 5. Okay, this is how it looks. So we know what the checkpoint, the entry point is going to be index.html. We go to index.html. We have a div over here, which is having the ID root. And whenever we are going to make changes into this HTML or this UI, which is being provided to us, we are going to access this root element. We are going to access this root element, which will help us to make changes in the UI provided by this index.html. Okay, and how we're doing it, how we are defining a script to it, which is from main.jsx. So source and main.jsx. So we get to the source. Okay, we get to the source, and here we are directed to main.jsx. As I said, we'll use create root. What does create root do? It helps us to access or make DOM based manipulation. This is a function, or this is a component being provided to us from React DOM client package. And there are other things we are also importing over here, for example index.css. Where is index.css? Anyways, and we are importing app from app.js, app over here. It might be very clear till now that app is a component. And what are we doing? We are from this create root, we are accessing the root into our document via get element, and we are rendering app over here in this root. Basically, I hope that you are able to understand this thing. Let's get into the blackboard so we can understand this thing. How are we going to use it? How is going to make changes to our web application? Let's get into this. So as I said, what is our checkpoint? What is the first thing which we are going to get? We are going to get index.html, right? After index.html, what am I going to get? I'm directed, as you have seen, I'm directed to src from main.jsx. From main.jsx, where am I getting to? What happens is, I have this, I'm accessing root, right? As I had shown you, we are accessing root element of index, and there we are rendering app.jsx. We are rendering a component app.jsx in our root. Now what does this mean? What does this mean from rendering app.jsx into root? Let's see. So this is the basic a div being given by index.html. This is root. Okay, this whole thing is root, which was given by index.html. In this root, we are going to render our app.jsx. Here we are going to provide another HTML code or HTML based UI via app.jsx. So we are actually, what does app.jsx component do? It provides us a JSX. This JSX helps us to provide a UI which will be transferred, or you can say which will be rendered upon this root thing which was given basically to us by index.html. Okay, let's try to see this thing in the server as well. We'll inspect this thing. So by now, this is how it happens. You have a root, a basic div which is being provided by index.html. You go to main. In main, you are rendering app.jsx into our root. We have accessed root from index.html from index.html into main, and there we are rendering app into this root. Into this root thing, we are rendering app. The whole code, the whole UI app provides. Okay. Okay, so now we'll go into app.jsx. Here in app.jsx, this is the whole code that I was talking about. This is the whole HTML code or JSX code which app.jsx is going to provide us. This is the whole code. This is the whole UI that it is going to provide us. Let's run this thing on our server so we can see what it actually looks like. npm run dev. Okay. So this is basically how it looks like. Okay. So this is our web application. This is how this weather application, how it looks. This is your, first of all, you're getting some degree Celsius temperature, temperature description, place, date and time will be shown over here. For example, if I something like, so this is all information I'm able to see in my UI. How am I able to do so? Because I used API. That API brought me some data from an external server, and that thing I manipulated the response I'm getting from it to be to be shown in front of my UI, to be used in my UI. Okay, so all of these things are getting updated. Let's do for something else as well. For example, okay. So yeah, this is how it works. So okay, this updation and this data being retrieved from a particular server and fetching the data, all of these things are possible with the help of API, as I never defined all of these things in my JSX file. Okay, so for example, we do something like this. This is a URL which I am providing. This URL directs me to google.com. Yes, in the similar manner, I will have to give some URL in my this JSX file, and that URL is going to retrieve me to that part. But the idea over here is I have to fetch the data from there and then manipulate it according to my use, as I'll be using the temperature of it, I'll be using the name of it, the local time of it, the condition of it, etc. Okay, so directly jumping into the part where I'm using API, and afterwards we will just analyze the whole React application to get to know how all these hooks and things are actually helping me to bring this whole application into life. Okay, so this is the URL which I'm giving. Okay, and this is an async function because there will be some time delay in fetching data, converting it to a particular format, and manipulating its informations as according to my need. So it will be a async function. We will have to use async await kind of function over here. Fetch method will be used. This fetch method will fetch this URL from the server which is at this point I'm using the Chrome browser. So from the browser, this fetch method is going to fetch the information from this URL. Now, how have I given the URL? This is the URL. You can give any URL over here. You can give https google.com as well if you want the data from there. So here what I've done, this is the format in which this URL is going to be called, right? Every server or from every point where the data is coming, we have a different format of their URLs. So this is how this weatherapi.com's URL format looks like. I have a base URL over here, and then I will define a queue. Okay, queue will be basically the input which I'm giving, and the AQI, if I require the AQI, etc. This is the basic format of it. I have defined my base URL over here, and you see here I'm getting a key value. You just need to log into weather.api and from their documentations, and there you can get your key to use the APIs of it. Okay, so this is the URL. This URL will be fetched, and there will be a response which will be generated from here. And you need to understand one another important thing, which is the status of it. Okay, let's inspect our application. Okay, so I want to show you one another thing as well, components. Just a second. So here let me give an input Lucknow, and this is all I'm getting. Here I'm getting an object over here. Okay, so what is this object? How am I getting this object? Where did this object come from? Let's see. See, so first of all, what did you do? You gave a URL, you fetched the URL, you got a response from there, And if the response status is 404, what does 404 mean? That there was some issue in fetching the data, so your data won't be able to fetch. For example, if you have any error in the URL, or there is some server error, so there you get some response status 404, 400, etc. So that is where you won't get any data. If you are getting any data, that is when the whole thing, all the promise and fetching data thing has been a success. At that point you get the response status 200, and if you get the response status 200, you will get a data, obviously, and that data will be received after we convert. As I said, an API gives you the data in a particular format. We will be requiring to convert that particular format into JSON format, so that we can use it, we can manipulate it according to our browser. So yes, this response which we get, we will convert it into JSON, and from there I am also, this JSON file, this JSON object which I'm going to get in the form of data, I am also printing it in the console using console.dir. This is the object that I'm getting. See, in this whole information we get it from the API only. The API gave us all this data in the form of some JSX form, which we converted into JSON form, which looks like this whole data has been provided to us. This is the whole data that is provided to us, and from this data we are going to manipulate this data to get different informations from this object. So as you can see, this temperature thing, this I am getting from current temperature, data dot current temperature. uh, this is my, in the object, which this object I have named as data in my app.jsx, in that the current part of it, and from there I'm going to temperature C. This is how I'm using the data in my application. So this is how I do it. Then I'm getting the information of the place by the object that I receive from fetching the data, converting into JSON. I am I'm naming it data as the object which I'm getting from this response, and from that object data I am going to the location part, and from there I'm getting the name. See, in this object location name, this is what I'm going to be showing over here. Okay, in the similar manner, time, condition, icon, updation, etc. is also being done, and a new object is formed, and this new object I am going to show all the information in this new object in my this UI. Okay, so it was very much visible over here how we are using API to fetch data, how we are manipulating that data according to the format which we need. Basically, this format is being provided by weatherapi.com, where I logged in. I got a key to use their APIs, and I used fetch method. I gave the URL inside the fetch method. I waited for it, and I got a response. If the response was success, after that I converted the response object which I got into a JSON object, and from that JSON object I manipulated all the informations which I was requiring, and I made a new object, and that object was something which I was showing over here, which whose informations are being shown over here, as in Lucknow at this point of time. So this is how our API helped us to fetch data from external server, which was weatherapi.com, and yeah, this is how I integrated into my application. Okay, so now let's wrap all of these things up by actually trying to understand whatever we have studied till now by this weather application. Okay, so this is the last lecture of the web development series as well. So let's try to conclude all of these things through this weather application. Okay, this is very simple weather application. This is just the fundamentals to build any application. So yeah, app is what? A component which will return us a JSX code. This JSX code is basically what? It is a HTML code only, but it is being returned as a function. Okay, so here we have weather app. Like this is whole of the HTML part. Weather app, as you can see. So this will be your weather application part. Here is your search box. Then you have the input being given over here. Then you have the search button. This search button, you have its own CSS, or rather I've used tailwind over here. As you can see, this is the tailwind part. I have used class name, and there I have defined all of these things: height 96, width screen 2 cross 1, the background color being blue. All of these things has been done styled in tailwind. Okay, so yeah, then I have this one thing I have styled it. Then the info, temperature, this image, all of these things come under the JSX part being provided by app.jsx component. And these are all the values which are being shown over here by these dots. Okay, at first. And yeah, and what you do is at the end you export this default tab. Where is it getting exported to? It is getting exported to main.jsx, from where it is getting rendered into root element of index.html. I hope I'm clear. Okay, and so this is what component does. This is how a component looks like. This is how it returns a JSX part. And another thing which we studied was React hooks. Here I have used state, and we also talked about React router. So from React router we import some important functionalities of React. For example, use state was being imported over here from React package. Okay, and have used state two times in input. Input over here is basically whatever I'm going to give here. Whatever input I'm going to give over here, and the update will be in the search bar. It will be updated. Let's focus over here. Details. Here details was what? Details is an object. What did I tell you? That use state, whatever you give initially inside the argument of use state, will be the thing that is going to be initialize my details, or this variable. This variable is always initialized. The type of it, the kind of variable this is going to be, is depending upon the initial value which is being provided in the argument of use state. Forecast is the callback which we are making. And this is another function which we have made to handle changes over here. Whenever I type something, that value is being updated. Update is going to update this input via this function. Okay, and this whole thing I have defined. This is the API work and everything. Here, this is the part. This is the new object which we are making. The new object is going to comprise of temperature, place, time, condition, icon, etc. From here, whatever we get from the API, this is going to be stored in this new object, and this new object is going to update via forecast API. This is going to update our details. So initially what were my details? There were no details. Details had temperature, time, place, etc. But it was not having anything inside of it. Whenever I fetch some data, I get that data, and that data is updated into this thing, and that details object is being updated with the help of our forecast callback. Okay, and the update callback, what it does, it makes the input empty again. For example, if I do Manali, okay, Manali. So here, this is all data I'm getting, and as soon as I get all these informations, update will make this input section empty. Okay, so by now I think we are done with this thing. I know, I hope that you got to understand what state means. State, for example, over here when we're talking about input, the initial state was empty, then I typed something, the state was changed, and after I got some value, after I got some details, the state was again empty. So that is what state is. You can use effect over here. You can use context API. For example, if you are making multiple web page function, multiple web page application, there you can use context API to share the data among different components which you have defined. So this is it. Now let's move on to deployment of our application. How do we deploy our applications? Where can we deploy our application, and why deployment is important? So deployment of React based projects, what do we have to do? We have to first of all build the project. There are different hosting platforms. Uh, Okay, so there are different hosting platforms where we can deploy our project. For example, you have GitHub Pages, which provides you a very basic and very simple way to deploy your projects via GitHub. Then you have Netlify, you have Versus, you have even Firebase, in which you can deploy your project to showcase them to your clients or to people. Now, we deploy the app using platform specific commands. For example, if you are using GitHub Pages, these are all the kind of commands which are going to give in the bash. And you can do it in the Netlify, you can do it Vercel. So choosing a hosting service, building the app, deploying it, optimizing the bus performance is the core motive of making any application, making it single page application, making it interactive. All of these functionalities are the needs of any web application at modern times. Deployment of any project is itself a very big topic, so I hope that we can conclude over here, and I hope that everything was clear by now. You can revise all of these topics, everything which was being taught in this session, with the help of the PPT which will be given in the description. And there are many free resources which you should definitely check out to learn more about website development and React in particular. For example, you have React official documents, which obviously are the most important documents which you need to refer. Then there are other YouTube and websites which you can refer for learning more about React. So I would like to wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for watching this session. The session was presented by Nikita Pant and Satyarth Srivastava. Please check out the official website of Hackslash and do join the Hackslash WhatsApp community. The description has all the information and links to website and community. Thank you.